Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Gathering Paracast here on the Cryptovania TV network. And I'm Heidi.
And I'm Stephanie. And we are here on a full moon. And it's the biggest full moon. We have a very special guest.
So we have Mike Ricksecker with us tonight.
Hello,
we're all trying to talk at the same time. Sorry about that. So welcome, Mike, to our show tonight. And we're excited to have you on. Yes, this full moon special, I guess.
Yes, absolutely.
Very cool.
I'm gonna have to get out there this evening. It's been pretty much clear skies for most of the day today, so hopefully that's true this evening. I can check out the moon.
Yeah,
nice.
That's what I was thinking. After the show, I'll take Dew for a stroll, and we'll see if we can see that.
Oh, there's already. I can see out on the patio. There's a raccoon out there right now. He's probably gonna soak up moon rays too.
Oh, that's got to be a good sign. The raccoon spirit animal, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, we've got a packed show, but before we get started, Mike, you're going to be our official card selector tonight. So we do a reading for everybody, just a brief little oracle card to get everybody situated for the week, however they want to take this. And I'm going to be using tonight Louise Hay's self-esteem. Oh, there it is. Self-esteem deck. It's got a little self-esteem message for everybody because I think we could all probably use that right now. So I'm going to shuffle. I shuffled them earlier, but I'm going to give these a shuffle, Mike. And whenever you're ready, just let me know, say stop, and I'll pick the top card.
Stop.
Okay. The top card here is, and it's just kind of a cool little graphic here. It says, I am neither too little nor too much, and I do not have to prove myself to anyone. And then on the back, it says, today, no person, place, or thing can irritate or annoy me. I choose to be at peace. Ooh. Well,
there we go. Perfect.
There you go, everybody. There's your message for the week.
I like it.
I'm guessing we can all use this.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So nice job, Mike. Thank you.
Very good.
Okay. Well, we're excited to have you back on our show. I think this is the first time we've had you on our show where we've been doing the video version of our show.
So, yeah.
So welcome to this.
Welcome to video. Congratulations.
Welcome to video. You're used to it, though. So, Mike, you've been all over the place. You've been on numerous TV shows, Ancient Aliens and Alaska Triangle, to name just touching on a few. So this is no big deal for you. And we're super. Did my video cut out?
Sorry yeah.
Okay, so we're
excited for you to be here.
Yes, we're excited to have you talk about portals tonight, and specifically, so I have your book. I'm going to show it here, Portals to the Stars. And this came out last year. And if you guys don't have this book, it is awesome. Thank you, Jason, for posting it there, so I don't have to keep holding mine up and knocking my microphone over. If you guys don't have the book yet, get it. I bought it. I don't know, not too long ago. You were having where you would send out signed copies, so I bought one, and it's packed with different perspectives and different ways to look at portals. I mean, it's really fascinating. So it's great. So everybody go out and get it.
Yeah. And I will still give out signed copies. All anybody ever has to do is just contact me through my website, and I'll be happy to arrange that. I mean, it's otherwise available on like Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and all those places. But yeah, well, thank you, Heidi, for grabbing the book.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's an awesome read. And I have my page markers in here of different topics that I think are really cool. And we were going to talk, because frankly, we can't talk about all the topics tonight, or we'll be on here until probably 5 o'clock in the morning. So we're going to talk about Egypt tonight.
Absolutely. Yeah. Egypt.
And you've been to Egypt
a few times. Yeah. We host a annual tour to there, the Stargates of Ancient Egypt tour. We're going back in November. There are still openings for that if people want to jump on board with us. And yeah, it's really, really fascinating. We're going to each time we run this tour, we don't always go to the same places. And one of the things that we're adding this year is the Egyptian labyrinth at Hawara. So there's a couple of pyramids around there, but the labyrinth. So everybody's been making a lot of fuss about the scans that are showing large chambers under the Giza Plateau, but they're also showing the same thing. It just came out, it was the week before last. The same thing there at Hawara, which is again the Egyptian labyrinth. So that there are more things below there, and actually some of those scans date back to 2008. Now there are even like greater scans that have come out since then. That there's something really deep and significant there.
What do you think it is? I mean, do you have any speculation?
I think it's a lost civilization, something that's just been lost to time, that the dynastic Egyptians built over top. When we look at things like the Great Pyramid, the Pyramid of Khafra, all of these, they're very, very different than these smaller pyramids that we know for sure were built by the dynastic Egyptians. Those smaller ones are the ones that we did find some bodies. They're all decked out in hieroglyphs. They're also falling apart. You have these big, huge, megalithic ones, no hieroglyphs, no bodies were ever found. They're still standing the test of time. And these smaller ones that were built by the dynastic Egyptians, they're falling apart. They have the hieroglyphs and everything written all over them. And it makes sense. You come across something that is huge and majestic. It's human nature that we want to mimic something like that. And well, the dynastics couldn't build it that big, so they built it as big as they could because it's like one of those, that is cool, I want to be buried in something like that, that sort of thing. So I think it's a much, much older civilization. It dates back, pre what we would call pre-diluvian or pre-cataclysmic, before the flood, which almost every culture across the globe has some sort of flood story or some sort of cataclysm story within their past that they talk about. And I think it's a civilization that existed before that time.
Wow. That's fascinating. So, so now these portals, like in Egypt, where you're going to be going, I think it's November, correct? Is that?
Yeah. November 11th to the 23rd. And yes, we'll be back in time for Thanksgiving.
Oh, important. So, what do you think about like portals in Egypt? You talk about them in your book, clearly. You even talk about like the different doorways in the pyramids and things like that. I mean, what's going on with portals in Egypt specifically?
Yeah, in Egypt, we find actual, Stargate chambers and these sorts of things within the temples there, which are actually labeled very plain and clearly Stargate. Like that's what the actual hieroglyphs themselves spell. So all you have to do is, learn a few hieroglyphs. And it's kind of funny. On our tours, we've actually made a scavenger hunt out of it. Going to some of the different temples, can you find where the Stargate labels are? And there are ones that we will come across sometimes that our tour guide, Mohammed, he's an Egyptologist. He's been running the tours there for 25 years. And in fact, his tour company is called Saba Tours, which means Stargate Tours. And, this is kind of like his bread and butter. And there are ones that guests have found that he hadn't seen before. And so, he's there taking photos and making notes and everything too. So,
wow.
These chambers, now we don't know specifically how they work. We have some ideas of whether they were ingesting the monatomic white gold cakes or these sorts of things, or maybe powered by like at Hatshepsut's temple, there was the small pyramid off to the side that could have been powering it. So we have some ideas, but we don't know specifically what they did, except we do know that these are the Stargate chambers because they are labeled as such.
Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering, because there's a lot of reference out there around aliens and Egypt and portals. And what do you think about that?
Aliens did not build the pyramids. That's one that even when I do events sometimes and these people see that I've been on Ancient Aliens and I have all this material on Egypt, they'll automatically go to, so you think that aliens built the pyramids. And it's like, nowhere actually, if you watch Ancient Aliens closely, nowhere do they actually say aliens built the pyramids. They talk a lot about aliens. They talk a lot about pyramids and other structures around the world. But generally, it's believed with ancient astronaut theorists that yes, extraterrestrials came to this world and imparted knowledge upon the humans. The humans used that knowledge to build these structures, but nobody's actually saying that aliens built it. But that's what people think when they see ancient aliens or the meme. It's kind of funny. I had a little discussion with some college students at Parapsychon in May, and they were coming by the table, and they're like, "Well, it's whatever their ancient civilizations professor was saying, and well, there's the meme, the guy with the hair, Giorgio, and it's like, what? Okay, so you're basing what you think off of a meme, okay?
Well,
thorough investigation.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's a lot left to be discovered there. I saw some sort of statistic here on I can't remember where the article was, but they were trying to estimate that and leaving it kind of small-ish, or at least in the writer's eyes smallish, saying that we've only uncovered about 30% of the ancient history that Egypt has to offer. And I'm looking at that like it's even lower than that. There is so much more that is still buried out there within the sands, that's been lost to time. So there's a lot to still discover. And so when we make these big discoveries like chambers, large chambers under the pyramids and things like this, it rocks the establishment because they have a certain narrative that they're trying to maintain, and things like this just blow that narrative out of the water.
Yes.
So what do you think about all that?
As far as the narrative, well, I mean, people have, there's a story that they've been wanting to tell or keeping told here for the past 50, almost 100 years. It just keeps that establishment in place. People have jobs and careers and things like this. What ends up happening is a couple different things. You have people that have spent their whole life doing something. They've written half dozen books or maybe even more on that, and all of a sudden somebody comes along with a new discovery which kind of blows away their life's work. So yeah, there's a factor of pride within that. Like, okay, what was my whole life if it was wrong? Here's the thing is, it's not that it was wrong. It's you're the step to get to the next place. And you just happen to see where the next generation started to take that, what the new discoveries were. Now, you could come back, you could support that person and be like, hey, you found something that, built off of what we did here in the past. And, oh, by the way, you could always write another book, I preface a lot of my books in the introductions that, I reserve the right to change my mind. Over time we learn new things. Yeah. And, as we learn, that's going to change your mind on how different things work or what the history behind something may be. So we have to be open-minded like that. So yeah, down the road, I have 14 books now. I mean, down the road, 10 of, those first 14 could be completely wrong. 50 years from now, we're not going to know until then.
Right. Yeah. And that's part of I think it's part of the fascination of doing this kind of work is the ability to learn and then, and say, oh, wow, some of my absolutes are no longer, that they're not an absolute because something has changed or we've gained some new knowledge or whatever. So I do, that's what I think is fun, is going, okay, well, that's not an absolute for me anymore, or it's not the way it's going to be. So
yeah, it's interesting because I know a lot of these, and those in our community kind of pick on mainstream archaeology. Mainstream archaeology tends to just hammer away at us, but in some ways, I feel bad for them because I imagine most, if not all of them, got into that field because they wanted to be like Indiana Jones. They wanted to go make the discoveries. Right? They wanted to have the adventure. They wanted to do all of that. And, somewhere along the way, they went from being that guy or gal to like maintenance mode. Like, I'm no longer going to seek the adventure. I'm just going to be a stalwart and maintain this thing here that I have. It's like, I've got this and this is what I have, and that's it. And they become really hard-hearted, unfortunately. And I'm not saying that's 100% across the board, but a large number of them are like that. And it's kind of sad to see.
Yeah. They can't change.
Yeah, some of them are very, very stuck in their ways.
Right. Well, and I would imagine at some point you feel your time limit, there might be, like I'm becoming obsolete or what I'm studying is obsolete. So I really have to try and make it relevant. It has to be true so that I can stay in the realm of what's happening. So I would imagine, I don't know. I mean, clearly it's probably different for everybody, but.
Well, and you see some of these old stalwarts that, they've done amazing things in the past. And, their news item of the day is, oh yeah, I just uncovered another tomb here with, some more mummies. And it's like, well, yeah, that's like the 125th, one that you've opened like that. And that's not all that ancient Egypt has to offer. I mean, yeah, there are a lot of those, and those are interesting. And it is interesting finding some of the different variations of the Book of the Dead that might be written on the sarcophagus or on the tomb or something like that. So there are some things there yet to still discover. But you can't say that that's like the big ancient secret I'm about to reveal when again, it's like the 125th time you've done this. Yeah, I mean, it's fine. That's fine. Keep us updated, but don't make it like this is the biggest, latest, greatest thing. Just it's fine. But there are bigger secrets out there to be revealed. So yeah, I mean, I guess the way I would probably approach it is, I'm on the quest to find the big secret, and we're coming across all these tombs and things along the way, but yet we still have the bigger thing yet to find. It's almost kind of like Curse of Oak Island. They're never going to find that treasure there,
I know.
They keep discovering all this cool stuff along the way. They're never going to treasure. We're still going. So, I think that format probably works a little bit better.
So I'm curious if when you're in Egypt, since you've been there a few times, have you had any experiences anywhere? It doesn't matter if it's in a tomb or whatever. It doesn't matter. I mean, have you had any experiences that you go, okay, this is paranormal. This is something that would need to be studied or try and, quantify. I mean, this is weird and here it's happening. Have you had anything like that there?
It's mostly been the energy, which is, very, very palpable. I mean, we haven't had anything like, we're in the Great Pyramid of Giza and all of a sudden, the ghosts of, ancient pharaohs or something came out of the walls, or ancient Greece or something like that. It hasn't been like that. And we do get like 2 hours just ourselves in the Great Pyramid of Giza, just our group. So we get that opportunity to, whether people want to meditate in there, I've seen people do breath work in there, all kinds of things like that. And there is absolutely a palpable energy within there. And
that's great.
And when we can feel into those sorts of things, when we have a location in which we're, almost by ourselves. A lot of times, we might be at a temple like Karnak. Karnak is always really busy, so it's hard to really feel into the energy and discover things there. I mean, we'll discover on the walls, oh hey, there's the Stargate symbolism, or we'll discover things about alchemy and things like that. But hard to have an experience like that there. But some of the other temples are a little bit more out of the way that not a lot of people go to, or some of the pyramids that are like that. Those can get really, really interesting. There was a time that we were in a tomb in Tanis, and Tanis is really off the beaten path. But I forget the pharaoh's name. But those who have been to the Egyptian Museum in Cairo will recognize the big, huge silver sarcophagus, absolutely beautiful and ornate. And that pharaoh was buried there in that tomb there in Tanis, which is off limits to the public. But we have Muhammad with us. He's our guide, and he knows everybody. And since nobody else was there, he just talked to his buddy, one of the docents there, and was like, can we get in the tomb. And even Muhammad hadn't been inside it in like 15 years because
wow.
you get people around, it's supposed to be off limits to the public. So, we got inside there and it just had this like vibe to it, that was, I would call it like creepy cool,
Creepy cool.
yeah, a creepy cool vibe to it. And that was a real special treat. And those are sorts of things that will happen on our tours that we'll get into locked doors and off limits areas that the public doesn't usually get into. And that's, when we have some of those special moments like that, even discoveries we've made, been into it a couple times now. The room with ships at Abydos, which is Seti's room. Seti is the little girl. I'm trying to remember her real name, but she was the little English girl, fell down the stairs that thought she was going to die because she had smacked her head and everything. But when she came to, she was like speaking differently, acting differently, was very like adult-like, and basically discovered that she was an ancient Egyptian princess, or I'm trying to remember exactly the where was it? She was at the British Museum, and
Wow.
she kept talking about, I want to go home, even though she was home. But the parents, they were just happy that she was alive. Took her to the British Museum as just kind of like a day trip. And when they got to this area that had photos of the Temple of Abydos and some of the artifacts, she's pointing at, there's my home, and was like, what happened to all the trees? And so she ended up there at that temple as one of the restorers. She was the first woman cartographer there in Egypt. At least modern day. We don't know what happened thousands of years ago. And she helped to restore that and basically tell everybody this is how things looked and how you're supposed to put this together. And that was her favorite room, the room of ships. And we actually made some interesting discoveries there this last time around.
Wow.
So I could go on.
That's fascinating.
No kidding. Boy, it sure would be fun to go over there. Egypt is one place I've always kind of wanted to go. You know what I mean? So, wow. And it sounds like your guy. Okay, talk about Raiders of the Lost Ark. There was that one guy that he had over there that got him into everywhere and helped him out. Yes.
Yeah, Salah, John Rhys Davies. Yeah.
yes, same. So
I know I've got a photo of Salah right over there. Well, it's a signed autograph, John Rhys Davies, Gimli and Salah, his two famous characters from Indiana.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. But yeah, speaking of the Ark, my gosh, we want to talk about a really, really, really cool place. We just got into it for the first time, on a group, at least for any tours I've been on this past year, where there's it's actually a small cave temple, and it's on Elephantine Island under the Egyptian temple of Khnum. And for those that believe that the Ark of the Covenant made its way down to Ethiopia, and Ethiopia right now claims that they have the Ark of the Covenant in Axum. Well, as part of that story, this cave temple on Elephantine Island would have held the Ark of the Covenant for something like 400 years. Now, usually that little cave temple is off limits, but we got to go inside it this past time, and you want to talk about a really interesting moment. Wow. It was, nobody had to say anything. We just all went in there and we were all very, very quiet and reverent. It's like you could feel that this was truly a special, special place. And we just, we were super appreciative of that. And we just, it was a real surreal moment. Yeah.
Wow. And that's the kind of stuff that I'm curious about, is the more like the vibe, because I get that you're not going to see a candlestick floating through the air, or whatever, but just having those kind of like, okay, because I haven't been to Egypt, but you talk about the Southwest in your book, and we're not going to dip into that tonight, but I've been to some of the claimed portals, down in Arizona and things like that. And you can absolutely feel a shift when you go into places, even if it's not a claimed, portal. You just go into certain areas and you just can tell the energy is different. That there's something there that would,
Mhm.
bring people to that location or
Yeah.
create a temple on that location, or because the temple is there, it creates that energy to do ceremony or
Mhm.
whatever it is that they were doing there. I mean, it's so
Yeah.
you can't not feel it.
Oh, absolutely. And really what it comes down to is the earth energy. So
Mhm.
as that energy is rising up from the Earth's core, the electromagnetism, and that's why I tell everybody it always starts at the core of everything on our planet, which is the core of the Earth, which is a spinning molten ball of iron, and that creates an electromagnetic field, which is wonderful because it, you know, protects our planet from the solar wind. But as it's passing through the Earth's mantle and the crust, it's interacting with different metals and minerals. And depending on what it interacts with and the quantity of it, it's going to create these different localized electromagnetic fields. And so that's what becomes, these different hotspot areas that, yeah, the ancients knew to go there. They could feel it. They were a lot more connected with
Mhm.
the earth than we are today. And so they would find these locations. They knew that they were powerful. They would build there, whether it was pyramids or stone circles or, some of these other what we call ancient sites of power. And they were harnessing that energy, whether it was for healing purposes or entering into ultra states of consciousness or, building portals. And if it was, truly a portal controlled by the human, then that becomes a Stargate.
Mm, awesome.
Hmm.
It's so fascinating. It's so fascinating,
Mhm.
just the different types of
Mhm.
portals and stargates. And anyway, okay, so we have a question that we have to
Yeah,
get back to. We have to backtrack to the Ark of the Covenant
sure.
because Jason was asking if you think that the Ark of the Covenant was actually stored in the temple that you were in. Do you think that it was?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think I've always been curious about what in the world happened in the Ark of the Covenant since I was a
Yeah.
kid and watched that first Indiana Jones movie.
Mhm.
It definitely had an energy there. I guess it's if you subscribe to the idea that the Ark of the Covenant made its way down to Ethiopia, then yeah, that possibility is definitely on the table. The book, The Sign and the Seal, Graham Hancock's first book, early 1990s, does a deep dive into that. And it's really, really fascinating. So I think it's entirely possible. I'm not going to pretend I know where the Ark of the Covenant is. I mean, if you just kind of like went down a practical road, in all likelihood, as what happened, countless number of times in ancient history, when peoples got invaded and they got taken over, which we know happened to the ancient Israelites a couple of times,
Mhm.
that their treasures were looted. And usually, what happened when treasures were looted is they were melted down, if it was gold, into a big vat, so that the conquerors could make their own trinkets and different things out of the gold. So it's most likely that the Ark of the Covenant was plundered at some point and was melted down by that conquering civilization, whether it was the Babylonians or somebody else.
Hmm.
But I hold out hope that, yeah, it could be there in Ethiopia. It could be somewhere still there buried in Jerusalem, where
Mhm.
the old temple had been. There's a lot of different plausible ideas. Hey, one of them is that the Ark of the Covenant is on Oak Island. I mean, geez.
Yes, I was just gonna say that. That's what they say. Brought
Yeah,
over
Which,
by the Templar Knights, right?
right,
and at this
right.
point, like we said before, it's never going to be found.
Right.
So,
Well,
You're not fine.
never know.
Yeah, and when it comes to Oak Island, that just a real quick aside. I think the majority of the treasure's already been found.
Yeah, I
Because
agree.
you had too many stories about Samuel Ball. Where did he get his money from? Or you had descendants from one of the
Yeah.
original searchers say this was an artifact from the treasure hoard. Well,
Mhm.
okay, then
Mhm.
obviously they
Worth
must have
it.
found it, right?
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it was already discovered long, long ago, and it's just it's
Yeah.
still fascinating, the archaeology and things that they were discovering on the island, but I think the treasure's long since gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think so too.
Yeah.
I
So we have another question here on our
Yeah.
chat room. we have the calling radio shows listening, and they said, "What do you say when many are talking about the Earth being flat?" How do you answer that one?
So, I want a flat earther reality show. Get them all in the boat, sail to the end of the Earth. I want to see that. If you think the Earth, go for it. Go for it. Mm-hmm. Sail to that end of the Earth, and I want to see you drop the boat off.
There you go.
Right off the end.
You'd think that if the flat earthers, they would have had a show like that by now. Let's see where the edge is. Let's prove
see where it is. I mean, I've been too high up in the sky and just in airplanes to see the curvature of the Earth and watch the moon rise from down below me.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Well,
it's a pretty.
Well, at the end of the Earth wasn't it in one of the Pirates of the Caribbean movie that they?
Yeah, there was a Pirates movie where they did go to the end of the.
Yeah, and then they were all in a weird place, right?
Yeah. So was that the third one?
I don't remember. At World's End. At World's End.
Yeah.
And it had that crazy Jamaican black witch chickie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She was really the goddess of the sea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't seen those movies in a long time. My kids like them. Yeah.
I think I might have to do that because they're fun.
They were fun. Yeah.
All right. Well, since we're talking about the sea, one of the things you bring up in this book is Atlantis. So do we just want to spend a couple of minutes and talk about that? And then we're going to have you on again and delve more into this book, and I will read it by then. I promise. I'll send it away to you, and you can send me an autographed copy.
Yeah, absolutely. Atlantis. So Atlantis did really exist. It was not called Atlantis.
Yeah.
Where we find that story is in ancient Egypt. The records that we can actually look at today that talk about it are at the Temple of Edfu. Temple of Horus Edfu. And it talks about, again, it doesn't call it Atlantis. It calls it the homeland of the primeval ones during Zep-Tepi, or the first time. And this was a civilization whose world was destroyed by fire and water, and they had to survive. And then they, repopulated the earth there in Egypt. And even when you look at the accounts from Plato, now Plato, he got it was handed down over time from Solon, which was another philosopher. Solon in 600 BC had gone to Egypt, and that is where he got the story and brought it back with him to Greece. Now, according to the priests there in Egypt, what they told Solon was that the Great Cataclysm had happened 9,000 years beforehand. So if you do the math, that puts it 9,600 BC, 11,600 years ago. That's like right at the end of the Younger Dryas era. It lines up perfectly with what we know about the physical history of our planet.
Yeah.
And this is something that, in Plato's time, and that's one of the problems that I have is, a lot of modern day scholars, when they talk about Plato and the Atlantis story, they try to they try to say that, well, Plato was just, telling a story that was contemporary to him, whether it was, Santorini or some of these other islands. And it's like, he wasn't telling a contemporary story. He straight out says in there, he got it from Solon. Solon, again, 600 years beforehand. And according to the priests in Egypt, 9,000 years before that. Yeah, Plato's not telling a contemporary story to him. He's just recounting the story that was passed on from 9,000 years beforehand. And what's interesting, so Graham Hancock talks about the lost civilization beforehand, and he gets, people kind of ride on him for talking about Atlantis with that. Well, if you look at the Atlantis story as passed down from Plato, and we also find this referenced in occasions in the Book of the Dead as well, is that there wasn't just one great cataclysm. In fact, the priest Sanchis there in Egypt laughs at Solon, because Solon came there telling the priests there about some of the Greek history, and he was telling them about the great cataclysm, and Sanchis starts laughing at him, and It's like, Solon, you Greeks are but children. There have been many cataclysms over the years, not just one. And he went on to tell, and it makes a lot of sense, right? And he went on to tell Solon that, look, your civilizations got wiped out. The only people that were left were the sheep herders up in the mountains. And so, they had to come down and repopulate, and they weren't educated, and they didn't know all the stories and everything. So to them, it was just the one. But they're in Egypt, which was part of the Atlantean civilization. So the Atlantean civilization, wasn't just, everybody thinks of the famous ringed island capital city. That was, kind of the seat of the Atlantean culture. That was the capital of it. Kind of like the Washington, D.C. of Atlantis. But it spread far and wide across many different parts of the world. Yes, all across Africa, all across Europe. It includes Egypt there in Africa, and then actually into Asia. Some people believe here in the Americas, we don't have necessarily proof of that, at least through the written work. I even speculate that, hey, it could have gone down as far as Antarctica. But it was a worldwide culture. Egypt was a part of that. So when we talk about, who built the pyramids, the Sphinx, and all that sort of thing, and this is a sense of pride, and I get it for, and this is one of the reasons why modern Egyptologists don't necessarily like this, especially the Egyptian ones, is because if you say they didn't build it, like the dynastic Egyptians didn't build it, they have this sense of, oh, you're saying that, our culture, the Egyptians weren't good enough to build something like this. It's like, no. We're not saying that. It's the Egyptians before Egypt, which were part of the Atlantean culture. It's still you guys, when the water subsided and you resettled, and all that, the stuff was still there. So it's still the Egyptians, so to speak, but it's the ones that were part of the Atlantean culture.
Wow.
So another one I could go on and on about. I would say get you're showing books. Get this book.
Yeah. Okay.
It's the Timaeus and Critias, which is Plato's work. It's a couple of the Socratic dialogues, which tell the story.
Awesome.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, yes, we're going to definitely have to have you on again, because we didn't even touch a majority of the topics in your book anyway. And it's so fascinating. So thank you.
Continued.
Yeah. Old school Plato. And the other one is, what is it? It's by Eve Raymond. It's a book that's out of print. It's the, oh my gosh, the mythological Egypt. What is that? I know I got a copy of the book too, but it's a really, really fascinating book. So it dives into the actual Ed Food text, and it's part of her dissertation. So if you think a female Egyptologist in the early 60s, so she had her work cut out for her, but amazing work. Yeah. So let me see here. Just want to get the name of the book for you in case somebody wants to grab it. But the mythical origin of the Egyptian temple. So, and that gets into all of the the homeland of the primeval ones, Zep-Tepi the first time, like all the different islands. There were multiple islands, like the island of the egg and all these other things. It's really, really fascinating.
Yeah.
Wow.
Sounds really good.
Absolutely. Well, that's good. So we've got your index in the back of the book, so we can check out all the
I had to use the index too. That's why I put it back there. It's like, yes, everybody else can use it, but that's the thing is I love a book with a good index. So I make sure that I have some pretty extensive indices in my books.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love anytime I dig into a good book and I can see what they've been studying as well in that book. It's I follow that. It's like you go down a rabbit hole. Oh, there I go. There's all these books now that I'm going to get and read. And so thank you for that.
Sure.
Oh yeah. When I do my research for these books, I'm going to the locations, of course, but I'm also stocking up on all kinds of books, because I don't want to duplicate work for one, but for two, it's like I can take what somebody has done in the past, and okay, what's the next step? Right. It's kind of like the way I view what what our work is now. is to take the knowledge that I've been accumulating and pass it on to the next generation. Now it's the responsibility of the next generation to pick up that mantle and keep it going. So that's kind of how I view this when I go diving into doing all this research. It's like those people did that research. They kind of set a bar. They've established some knowledge, which you could argue some of that knowledge too, sure, but picking up that mantle and carrying on, and might discover something new or whatever, but it's at least inspires you down a path, or it points you in a direction to take and explore. And I might discover new things that maybe this person started down that path and didn't quite get there, and now we're taking it further. Like, okay, mentioning the Egyptian labyrinth earlier. Well, back in 1888, Sir Flinders Petrie had explored that area, and he found under the ground there this massive stone surface that, I mean, we're talking like 300 meters by 240 meters, not feet, meters. Absolutely huge, this whole area. Well, he never excavated it, right? So, and just left it and explored other areas. So it was like 120 years later where they went out thinking, there might be something more to this slab that's buried under the sand here. What's going on? And they actually did discover that there was something else under the ground, like a series of different pillars or something like this under the stone slab. They didn't have the technology back then to really get too much deeper, and that's now these other scans are coming out because they have this better technology to see, oh, there really is something deeper down there. But it all started back in 1888 with Sir Flinders Petrie.
Wow.
And it's just a continuation.
Yeah.
140 years ago almost. Crazy talk.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're going to wrap it up for tonight, but thank you so much for being with us. And how do people get a hold of you if they want to connect with you or go to Egypt with you? How do they find you?
Yeah, absolutely. MikeRicksecker.com is my primary website. So yeah, and you just go into the events and tours tab there, and you can find all my upcoming events. Actually, I need to update that because I have some more stuff coming up here that I haven't added to the events slide at the top. But the Egypt tour is on there as well. So I know that one is updated. And that'll click you into the We Travel site. And yeah, I'd love for anybody who can to join us. Like I said, we definitely have some spots open, and it's just such a life-changing adventure. So yeah, come join us.
I bet. And I'm gonna get to Egypt someday. I know it.
I'd love to have you with us.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being with us tonight. And we're going to have you back on because again, we've just, tip of the iceberg on the book tonight.
Right. Yeah. We got more into ancient Egypt and Atlantis. We touched a little bit on the portals, but
yeah, that's okay.
That's how it always is, though. So yeah, thanks so much for being on, and we look forward to your next date when you come on. And thank you everyone for watching the show and listening. The podcast will be up and available at the end of the week. If you just want to listen to the headphones, that's great too.
And thank you to our producer Jason Trost and Cryptovania TV for producing our show. And we'll see you guys next week.
Yeah. Good night, everyone.